The British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
And good morning, my name is Sonia Kutenbrauer, and here are your news headlines for 10 a.m. The Kansas City Chiefs have won the Super Bowl in a tight matchup over the 49ers. Taylor Swift's boyfriend Travis Kelce and quarterback Patrick Mahomes led the Chiefs to a 25-22 point victory in overtime. ABC reporter Alex Stone caught up with some fans, grabbing some memorabilia after the game in Las Vegas.
Ben has been to every Chiefs Super Bowl appearance in the last 5 years. They've been to the game 4 times. I found him in the seats collecting what had been left behind and was on the ground.
I'm picking up some cups and popcorn and towels to take back to everybody home. Give them
confetti, little souvenir.
And filling up a bag of confetti, bring it home.
Well into the night, the parties and celebrations were going here. Alex Stone, ABC News at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas.
Ontario's top court has ruled a controversial law that limited raises for public service workers is unconstitutional because it violates collective bargaining rights. Canadian press reporter Allison Jones has more from Toronto.
The Court of Appeal found in favor of the unions that had challenged the law representing workers like teachers and nurses. The court said that while governments are entitled to try to limit public sector salary increases, the province couldn't explain why it couldn't do that through collective bargaining. The law capped salary increases for public sector workers to 1% a year for 3 years. But since a lower court struck it down in 2022, many of those workers have received retroactive pay increases through arbitration. Allison Jones, The Canadian Press, Toronto.
5 people, including 3 children, are dead as Manitoba RCMP continue to investigate multiple incidents which they call separate but connected. Canadian press reporter Brittany Hobson has more on the tragic series of events.
A 29-year-old man was taken into custody Sunday morning, but police have not said what charges he may face. Cops were called to an area just outside of the town of Carman, southwest of Winnipeg, where an adult woman was found dead in a ditch. They later responded to an area about 70 kilometers north where they found a vehicle on fire and a witness who had pulled the kids out. A further investigation led officers to a home in Carman where they found the body of another woman. Mayor Brent Owen says a tight-knit community of about 3,000 is devastated to learn about the tragedies. RCMP expect to provide more information in the coming days. Brittany Hobson, The Canadian Press, Winnipeg.
The organization representing chartered professional accountants across the country will cut about 20% of its 400 employees. Canadian press reporter Don Kelly has more on who will be affected.
Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada is making the cuts in advance of a move by provincial oversight bodies in Ontario and Quebec to split from the national organization in December. CPA Ontario and CPA Quebec announced in June of last year they'd be exiting their agreement with CPA Canada, triggering an 18-month countdown to the split. CPA Canada was created in 2013 to unify various professional accounting organizations and designations. Don Kelly, The Canadian Press, Toronto.
America's international allies are keeping a close watch on the looming presidential race following former President Trump's recent comments. Associated Press reporter Jackie Quinn has more on what world leaders have said.
World leaders are already weighing in. Russia's foreign minister says it really makes no difference if President Biden or former President Trump is reelected. And a Chinese professor of international relations says the 2 presidential candidates are, quote, like 2 bowls of poison. Trump this weekend on China says he'll be tough again.
We didn't play games and we took out billions, hundreds of billions of dollars out of China.
While President Biden in November met with Xi Jinping in San Francisco.
Stable relationship between the world's 2 largest economies is not merely good for the 2 economies, but for the world.
French President Emmanuel Macron says whoever wins, America's first priority will be itself. I'm Jackie Quinn.
The Vancouver Canucks have won their 35th game of the season. The team played a matinee game against the Capitals in Washington yesterday. Goals from Connor Garland, Nils Höglander, and JT Miller would lead the team to a 3-2 victory on the road. The Canucks come back on top after a 4-3 OT loss. Those were your news headlines for 10 a.m. I'm Sonia Kutenbrauer.
Stay tuned for more. This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
I have had the opportunity to work with people that I idolize.
You hear all these like social media gurus being like, you gotta post like 3-4 times a day, which is absurd, you know what I mean? Like, it's absurd.
My openness, I hope, gives the impact of letting people know that they don't need to be absolutely perfect in everything, and that there is going to be failures. There's going to be like a roller coaster of emotions and a roller coaster of events.
Being a musician isn't an easy job. It's filled with unbelievable highs, but unexpected struggles as well. During my career as a musician, I've often wondered if other musicians in Vancouver were going through the same things I was. The struggle to get noticed, the playing shows in front of almost no people just to get experience. It's always something that's gone through my head. My name is Ryan Bowles, and in this podcast, my producer Grace Miller and I get to know unique Vancouver musicians, learn from their experiences, and most of all, share their stories. This is Making It, Vancouver Musicians. In this episode, we're focusing on social media, the artists that use it, and how it's helped them. Here we speak to Vancouver drummer Jack Thomas, a man with an unbelievable story and 94.3 thousand followers on Instagram alone, and DJ, producer, audio engineer, and entrepreneur Koji Aiken, who has great insight and experience with how artists can use social media with over 70,000 followers on TikTok. How to effectively use social media can be a struggle for any independent artist. What matters is how you connect with your audience and how you take their feedback and adapt that into your musical content and career. Jack Thomas has a lot of insight into this trial and error process. Jack is a drummer from Port Coquitlam who, in September of 2015, lost most of his right arm in a tragic workplace accident. But much like Def Leppard drummer Rick Allen, Jack kept drumming, and his story has led to unbelievable opportunities, recently working and performing for Drumeo, a studio in Abbotsford, and becoming a Sabian Cymbals sponsored artist, and notably being featured on the most recent season of Canada's Got Talent.
As a musician, as an artist, I recognize the kind of importance to have a presence on social media, as well as building a presence on any new social medias that come in. So it all started off with Facebook, and then it was like Facebook and Instagram, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, etc., and so on and so on. So like starting off, it was just to have a presence almost. Like I was like, all these big bands are doing that, so I'm going to do that too.
In the competition to perform live in Vancouver, social media often is the only opportunity to have your content broadcast to a large audience. Artists exploring the different types of content they will create helps to define their digital voice.
So anytime anyone asks me about how to like start a social media account or how to like use it, I always tell them like, you got to really figure out what you're doing there. And it's like DJing to an empty room, because it's like if you've never touched a DJ deck before, it's like an ideal place to like experiment and play around.
DJ Koji Aiken has come a long way from those beginning stages. And now he uses social media to share his work in each of his roles as an artist, as well as a means of creating opportunities to promote other Vancouver artists. He also began an entertainment group called Kumo that has performed at local clubs like Celebrities, The Rec Room, and True North. But how do you find your brand? What is the sound you're going for? For many musicians, starting out on social media can be a daunting process, but it pays off to figure out what works for you and use the platforms to your advantage.
Like, even if I feel like it's a good idea, if it's not responding, or if people aren't responding to it, it's like, all right, I guess it's not as good of an idea as I thought, and just have to figure out the next thing.
Not all artists use social media with the intent of gathering a following. Some, like Jack, underwent an evolution when their following began to grow.
I would say the transition between making it a personal account and like my artist account, so to say, ultimately came from when I started getting attention on my account. I posted a couple music things just because, it's my personal account. I play music, so I'm going to post music. But once it started to get attention from people that weren't just my friends, weren't just family, it's like, okay, let's start to focus this on this.
For Jack, it was the Nimbus School of Recording and Media that pushed him towards online platforms to promote his content, even on ones he'd rather avoid.
At one point in there, I can't even remember what course it was part of. I think it might have been Production 200, but there was an element of building up social media presence. And so that's the only reason I ever made a Twitter. I was very anti-Twitter, and it was like, all right, well, let's just make this. And they're like, well, you should make it was an assignment. Make a Twitter page, make an Instagram page, make a website, make yourself available online.
Building a brand is important. Personally, I've always found the most successful artists, especially on social media, are the ones that portray who they really are. Those who let their followers in on who they are as people. And that authenticity allows people to connect with those artists.
When I first started posting, it was definitely like, let's post the best of the best, like make this facade, everything is great all the time kind of thing. I made that change to start being a lot more like honest and open. When I recognized what my content was doing for people, like the big thing for me, the big reason that I keep doing things is people are constantly saying, you helped me get through this hard time, or you helped me get past this hurdle in my music, or whatever it is that they're struggling with. And I'm like, okay, so they like seeing the human element of things.
For Jack, it's audience support that makes him feel more ready to be vulnerable on social media.
And I want to maintain that in my image. I don't want to be seen as someone who's like this perfect, crazy drummer, or this like everything's always great. He's so positive. It's like, no, I'm gonna post when I'm in a bad mood. I'm gonna post my crappy takes. It makes things a lot easier when I see that from other accounts. It makes it a lot easier on myself to see like, okay, this person that I idolize is also human. So I know that there are people who may take me as an inspiration. So I want them to also feel that relief of like, okay, he is human. That makes me feel good. I can attain that goal.
People like to cheer on an independent artist, particularly when they're local. There seems to be a sense of community pride when someone is doing it all themselves.
There's a sense of like pride that people get when they can cheer on an independent artist because they know that they're doing it all on their own. And there's a greater sense of actual like direct support to this artist.
Gaining a core following is a difficult challenge, but maintaining that following is an entirely different beast. As most artists will attest, maintaining a following is difficult work. For some, like me, it doesn't always turn out the way I'd hope. For others, like Jack and Koji, it means putting out a constant stream of content and keeping up with what's new.
Technology development now is like light years faster than what it was 1,000 years ago, right? So I think really the people that are staying on top of what's popping and what's new and being able to utilize these new tools, they're the ones that are going to get ahead.
It has now become an expectation of the industry for an artist to be on social media. But to be successful, you also need to develop the skills of a media manager. For Jack, maintaining consistency is a job in and of itself.
Maintaining my social media back then, it's very similar to how I do it now, and it's quite a tedious process of just analyzing what I've posted in the past while. Having a category of content ready to post, new things ready to post on a weekly basis or a daily basis, commenting and following people back that follow me just to get that attention out there. It's a lot of work. It's for one person to do. It takes a lot of my time.
Being a musician requires commitment. You need to focus all of your time and energy on making it work. From my own experience, you also need to have something you really believe in, whether it's your sound or your brand. It's about having a vision and committing to it.
I would say it's just I just relentlessly believe in something, like in a vision or anything, any sort of thing like that. And when I do, that's kind of the thing that carried me through the first little bit, where I didn't really know what I was doing and I was kind of just posting just to see what would happen. I kind of had a vision that this is something that could turn into something massive and big, and also something that could really represent myself and help me in the trajectory that I wanted to go in.
I've also noted that it's often different types of content that stand out. keeping up with current trends, trying new things, and ultimately, feedback from your audience.
Motivation Mondays for me, it's just kind of a way to maintain regular content every week. Somebody to get myself into the studio to do something, and then as well, just, a way for people to hear a message maybe they need to hear that day.
Growth in following for these artists led jamming out in a kitchen and posting drumming and amputee content to greater opportunities and the perks of being a celebrity.
I share a lot of videos of me dancing to not like TikTok, like fun dancing. I'm literally just jamming out of my kitchen to songs that I discovered that I really, really like. And, I created a format that I can like rinse and repeat and share all this music with to all these people like on these social media platforms. And when I discovered that resonated with people, it kind of just really took off.
All the work an artist does to grow and maintain their digital audience finally pays off when more opportunities come their way. The marking moment of success for me was Tommy Mac reaching out to mentor my band, being that he was a major musician and has talent many admire. If you're like Jack Thomas, it leads to job opportunities, joining bands on stage, and television appearances. Jack notes that when opportunities come knocking, it's usually through social media.
Canada's Got Talent was a fun one. I was found through social media from some casting agents, and they said, hey, we're casting for the next season of Canada's Got Talent, and we would absolutely love to see an audition come in from you.
This national opportunity is a great example of just how profitable a strong social media presence can be as an endeavor. After his episode aired, his following grew faster than he ever expected.
After the show, it was a pretty immediate bump in social media following. I was probably reaching about 500 new followers a day. I went from about 25,000 followers to 50,000 followers in 3 days. So I literally doubled in 3 days' time.
Through that experience, another interesting opportunity came Jack's way, joining California band Drain on stage for a recent show in Vancouver. Jack says the band had been following him for years.
That's one of my main videos that I repost constantly because everybody loves it. People haven't seen it, so I will post it again if I have nothing to post. And every single time I post, they're like, whenever we're up there, you got to join us. And sure enough, they booked a tour, and like a couple days before the show, the vocalist was like, yo, you going to be at the show? Because we would love for you to jump up there with us. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it. So one thing led to another. I met them at the show. We hung out for the day. And then when the song came on, I hopped up there. I couldn't hear anything because, obviously I didn't have the monitors that the drummers had. But it was fun. It was just an absolute blast.
And for Koji, he uses his platform to help support other local artists through promotion of their work on his Instagram. He does this to move the local scene forward and connect with local musicians. As a whole, this could be the next evolution in artists supporting each other in Vancouver. Different artists coming together and driving the community forward. I've always realized that a social media presence is a crucial aspect of being a successful artist. In my experiences, I've always found it a struggle. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't break through that ceiling, but I'm glad to tell the story of two artists that have found successes in this realm. Jack Thomas and Koji Aiken, although very different from each other, have found niches that work for them and have gained a following that supports them in everything they do. Their individual stories show that to be successful, it's about consistency, work ethic, and not being afraid to try something different. The theme song for this series is Wayward by Skyline Park from their studio album From Dusk to Dawn. Other music provided by Of Oblivion and Koji Aiken. Our podcast and interviews were recorded at BCIT Broadcast Center and the Drumeo Studio in Abbotsford, British Columbia. We would like to thank Jack Thomas and Koji Aiken for their participation in the production of this podcast. Thank you for listening. You can find us on Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.